Wonderful, thanks. Then again, welcome. As I said, it's already the last session of the 5 CIPU-Colloque online sessions of the topic of 2026, the data and digitalization in urban and regional development. Just as a brief remark, the CIPU is the exchange platform on urban development in Luxembourg. And we already had 4 sessions. Maybe you have listened to some of them, maybe you've been participating in all of them. I know that our 2 presenters haven't because of language differences, I would say. But just as a brief overview, we've had really interesting sessions already looking into data and digitalization and urban planning and development in Luxembourg, but also outside of Luxembourg. We've been looking into the national framework, so what has been going on in the last years when it comes to territorial monitoring in Luxembourg, but also outside. Urban centrality. We've been looking into some municipal practices, for example, Chutranche, which is also part of one of the projects which we're going to hear about later today, the GeoPortal, the Twin for Resilience project. And then we've also looked into the side of participation and processes, for example, how digital twins are used in the project Deine Stadt in Germany. We've looked into the Smart City Ulm and digital permitting processes in Metz. Today, we're not only going to switch the topic focus a little bit, but we're also going to switch to another language. After having had 3 already, we're going to go into the 4th one. But we're also going to look into across other borders. So we're going to the intercommunal of Leidal, and so Belgium, and we're going to look into Estonia. So how are actually other cities and regions shaping the digital transitions? How they're dealing with challenges, but what is also the added value of digitalization. So I'm happy to welcome, on the one hand, Bram Tak from the Intercommunal Leidal, who will present their participation in the Twin for Resilience project, but also other digitalization processes in the Intercommunal. And then we have Christopher Reitwier, the head of digital construction at the city of Tallinn, which is one of the very advanced cities in digitalization in the EU. So welcome and thank you already. Just for organization, as the last sessions as well, both presentations are going to be held after each other. And if you have one concrete understanding question, for example, after the presentation of Bram, feel free to ask it directly afterwards. But if you have more input questions or comments, then I would kindly ask you to collect this question, maybe note it down on a piece of paper or write it down in the chat. And after both presentations, we'll have some time to discuss. So then you can either ask it in the chat or just unmute, raise your hand and ask it directly to the presenters and use the chance to get an answer directly from them. I think that's it from our side, and then I would happily hand over the floor to Bram.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon for the share presentation. In the meanwhile, I can present myself maybe. My name is Bram Tak. I'm working in Leidal. Leidal is an intermunicipal organization that works together with Chutranche in one of the projects I want to explain, because I have for you this afternoon 2 topics. First of all, I will tell you a little bit about our context, what type of organization is Leidal, but especially I will focus 3 of our recent projects and one ongoing project, the Twin for Resilience projects, about that digital transformation in urban planning. Leidal is what we call an intermunicipal association, founded in 1960, and in fact it's a cooperation of 13 municipalities in the region around Kortrijk, and the idea is that these 13 municipalities put their knowledge and expertise together so that they can do more. What we do, we give expertise, we give services towards the municipalities. We started around the development of business parks and social plots, and also immediately with spatial planning. But nowadays we have in our policy plan defined 6 lines of transitions where we're working around. One of these transition lines is the digital transformation. next to the regenerative space, so the urban planning, and that's the topic of today. Maybe I will show you where we are situated. If Luxembourg is here in the here, here, I think you see that. Then we are here in Flanders, and then the western part of Flanders, we are 13 municipalities. It's about 320,000 inhabitants, and we share borders with the Walloon part of Belgium and with France, where the metropole is the biggest city. We are as a region, but of course, so as the whole of Flanders, we're highly urbanized. That comes with a lot of more negative consequences, like you need a lot of mobility. You have to travel a long time. There are a lack of open space, lack of nature. There's a lot. There are big costs for governments, for public services, and so on. And one of the main ideas in Flanders on spatial planning is the so-called building shift of construction shift, which is in fact preserve open space as much as possible and the existing already taken space, try to use it in a better way, a more qualitative way. I mean, our goal in figures is that by the year of 2040, no extra land take will be done anymore. And how do we want to tackle this? Well, we wanted to do it in a smart way, in a data-driven way, because we think it's important and essential that policymakers, civil servants, citizens have the same data, see the same data, so that they can make better decisions. And our main idea or key element in this is that we are convinced, in fact, that we have to build a kind of an visualization platform, or at least different platforms where visualization is the focus is key during the whole policy planning process. By monitoring, by developing different scenarios, making simulations, you need visualization as a way of put all the information together in the same way so that you can share knowledge, that you can share ideas, visions, so that you can make better decisions. And this afternoon, I will present you 3 projects. I put it in that in the scheme of visualization, and I will explain a bit of our first steps in that digital transformation process. The first project is the Data for All project. It's an Interreg North Sea project that ended last year. And the main idea there was that the main theme about this, that we work on mobility data, and then especially data concerning the bicycles. And the idea is that we collect qualitative data around mobility on a regional level, not only for one municipality, but we try to combine it on the regional level, and then we want to gain insights into it so that we can use it for policy making. The challenge that we were confronted with was that there is a lot of data, but it's very fragmented. It's on the cloud, on a PC of a civil servant. There are all kind of different types of data. There is data about the shared mobility bikes, but also when you measure velocity, there are 4 or 5 types of radar systems that will be used, and we have to collect and combine all these different data types. And what was also important, that even at a very basic level, we don't have in Flanders a layer of a GIS file where only the bicycle paths are present. So we had to tackle all these problems, and our solution was to create a dashboard that is fed by different data, and where we built some data pipelines to combine all these different data types. And we also tried to make a first bicycle path layer for the whole region. On a technical level, I won't explain it too much, is that we combined the several types of data. So we collected them, and we reformed it, transformed it, and standardized it, and put it in a so-called data vault. Based on that enriched, standardized, clean data, we had data sets, and we built some GIS services so that we can make the dashboards and the Power BI tools. Because at the end, we had very specific products. We had a GIS portal where you can see all measurements, for example, about the amount of traffic of bicycles. And for each measurement point, you can deep dive in that data with Power BI report. I will just show you some screenshots of the applications. This is the dashboard focusing on the city of Kortrijk, where each bullet, each color is a measurement point. The different colors is because they are different systems that are in place. We don't have it only for Kortrijk, because as an intermunicipal organization, we also wanted to make our products ready for all the municipalities. So based on focusing on the city of Kortrijk, we developed the data pipelines for the whole region. So at this moment, all the data of the municipalities, but also the data of the province and the data of Flanders is combined and put together. And when you want to have more details, you can click on a measurement point, and then you see on a Power BI more information. It's not only the data of the amount of bicycles, but also the accidents that were happened. And finally, we also developed a layer of the bicycle paths based on OpenStreetMap data that we cleaned and interpreted and categorized and combined with some other data, so that we now have at least at our regional level a data layer for concerning the bicycle paths. That was the first project. A second project is smart urban planning project. It's more about also by monitoring, but also in the atmosphere of simulation. That's a project that's only happened in Flanders together with another big city, the city of Ghent. It has more or less the same amount of inhabitants as our whole region. And we worked together around the theme of a lot of spatial indicators concerning urban planning. And that can be amount of parcels, amount of addresses, amount of buildings, the netto land take, the amount of greenery, and so on. And here the challenge we have is more or less the same. There exists luckily a lot of data, but they are exists a lot of different geoportals and so on to check these data, but they are all separated next to each other. They are in the so-called silos. And another problem or another challenge is that these data exist on different scales, on different levels, and in different forms. The solution that put in place here is a little bit similar. We again developed a dashboard to combine the data, but we introduced a new level. That's the level of the parcel block. So a parcel as a new building block where you can aggregate and combine data. And another element, because all the data is next to each other, we organized or we realized a dashboard to do multi-criteria analysis to have immediately insight in the data. I will show you the results. There are in fact two use cases, and in each use case, there were four steps. There was the need analysis. What does a policymaker want? Then we checked what data was available. Then we processed the data to realize these dashboard in this data visualization step. The first use case, the use case concerning the proximity of services. As you know, if a city or a region grows in population, the challenge is that you need also a lot of services to support that population. It's about green space, but also schools, um, shopping, kindergartens, and so on. And the main question we wanted to tackle was that if you are an urban planning officer, then you want to have an insight in which services are in the environment, but also what is that surface area, and also what is the capacity of a facility of a service. And in Flanders, we can, and maybe in Luxembourg too, I don't know, if you allow, if you want to give a permit to a construction project, you can also impose some conditions. So you have to realize that amount of greenery, or you have to realize that kind of function, and to define which type of service or facility you want to impose. This application can be useful. Also here the same, some screenshots. In in this dashboard, you have two main categories. You focus on the service or on the location, and I will start about on the type of services. So in this image, you see each pinpoint is a service. I think we are here with the kindergarten with the kindergartens. And that's very common. That's not high tech, not at all. You see where every location of where every service is located. But then we added based on distance that you can choose, because each service has a preferable distance, or maybe you have some objectives of policies around. We need, for example, for each 1,000 inhabitants, that amount of services. So you visualize it, and it's immediately this perimeter is based on all the addresses and the people who live there. Then you can of course change that distance. Then you have another view, and um, when you um, when you when you click on a service, then you can also see for that specific service here, the kindergartens. We see, okay, there are a place for 23 little children. And then it becomes interesting. Then you can combine these and say, taking into account that amount of capacity and a theoretical service area based on the distance, we combine it, and here you see in the darker red color all the people, or in fact all the addresses that are covered by that type of service, taking into account the amount of inhabitants that live there. And that gives you then an insight where you have enough of services and where not. So in this layer of here you see, you can indicate then that there are amount of people or addresses that aren't covered by that type of service. So we did it for the kindergartens, but also for the schools, primary schools, and greenery. Like I said, there were uh, um, two tab pages. The one was the services, another one was the location. Here we're on the place of on the tab of the location, and yeah, I think it's quite clear. If you click on a specific location, you can indicate also a distance, and then you can see all the distance, all the services that are available within that distance. And Yeah, of course, you can export all this information, so you can work further on it. We use this type of dashboard for quick analysis for a specific environment to have an idea with which kind of services are needed. There was another use case, and that was the use case concerning the monitoring of the land take with ID that within 2040 maybe we can't take more, or we can't use more land than it's already taken. And we developed also here a dashboard that puts together all indicators and where you can do some analysis. I will give you a short overview. Instead of one GIS portal or dashboard for one indicator, we combined a lot of indicators already in one environment, and we developed the pipeline that's behind it to add other spatial indicators. And you can see the indicators for several years. You can indicate a specific place here, that so-called parcel block. But you can, if you click on it, you have information of all the parameters for that specific place. But you can also click another parcel and then make comparisons. You can combine different parcel blocks because you want to know more, or we want to get insights of a bigger area. And of course, you can draw your own area to collect all the information and send it to your email of the spatial indicators that are with their values for specific the location you draw. Um, you can you can see the information for 1 year, but you can also see the differences between other years. So you can have an insight in the evolution of time. As here you see the so-called difference maps. But what I especially find interesting is the other tablet is the multi-criteria analysis, where for all the spatial indicators that are available, you can you can set some preferable values, and when you do that, then you can you immediately have a view on the map of all the location that met that criteria. And that can be very useful to define, for example, some strategic locations or locations that met some criteria, and that then, or for example, can be part for one kind of subvention or something like that. And then the third project is the Twin for Resilience project. That's a project we do with together with Chutrange and also the list that's located in Luxembourg. It's a project that's still ongoing, and this project works around the digital twins. Digital twins, but then specific for urban planning. And the idea behind is that decision making is hard, is difficult, and with the digital twin, we can facilitate that decision making. But there are some challenges. At least for us here in Kortrijk, we have a lack of 3D data, and especially for buildings. Yeah, you have to find out what are the technical platforms that you will use, also internal processes to collect data, but also the way you make your designs and so on. You have to define it more. And how can you use that digital planning in participation so that that decision making, the discussions between policymakers, between administration and policymakers, between policymakers and civilians or citizens goes quicker, more objective, and so on. And the solution we see here is that, first of all, we we wanted to have our own 3D buildings in a level of detail that's quite okay. We want to assess or evaluate uh, yeah, the designs for example, if you put a high building within the city center, we want to have a quick evaluation, and we want it to be available for all our 30 municipalities. That's we want so that what we call the regional twin, and finally we want to focus on a tailor-made local twin for a smaller part of a municipality to have a good insight of all the elements. I will give you some um, some more information about this. So in fact, we have these three use cases, these building blocks, the regional twin and the local twin. The first use case is here again a very basic element. Nowadays, what do we have from our Flanders level of Flanders? We have 2D data of all the parcels, and there is also a 3D data, but it's the level of detail, so-called level of detail one. You only see the footprint of the building with the height, and so you all have a kind of cubes. This is clearly not enough if you want to do a serious spatial plan. So what is our aim? That we at least are on a level of detail two, so that you see a building with the shape of the roof that's recognizable, and also with some extra buildings around it. And luckily, we have in our region point clouds. We take it now. This year it will be the third time we do it. So we do it every 2 years. So we have a quite actual insight of overview of point clouds of actual data about this. And within this project, we had the opportunity to test of to work with the open source roofer tool, and that tool combined with these point clouds and also with the contours of the buildings, we were able to realize our own LODT 2.2 3D buildings. I will show you what that means. So if we had that, now we can generate our own 3D buildings, and we can do it for each project we have planning task. So that's quite interesting. On beforehand, we had to look or to buy this type of data. Now we can generate it immediately, and we can do it every 2 years again. So every 2 years again. So we have yeah, that's also interesting. We have actual data on this, or more or less actual data on this. We are able to export it or transform it in different data types. So we can use it in SketchUp, for example, in a GIS system, or also in a game engine. Here you see the data where we generated, and another school, gaming school, used this data to give a demo of how you can use this data in a game engine and explain a future and future of a development of a part of the city. It has also the ability that with this data you have immediately richer data, because you have then the height of the buildings, the volume of the buildings. You can make the combination of the amount of the amount of surface versus the footprint of the building, and that gives you an idea of density as well. And we can link all the data that we already have on a 2D level in GIS data. We can link it with these 3D building blocks. So that's very interesting to give an insight on, and maybe here, for example, it's about the heritage and value of all the buildings. So we can use existing data and we can visualize it in a 3D way. And to ending this first use case, now we are do some explorations of how can we distill the data out of the point clouds concerning trees and also concerning the surface, the terrain model. But that's still work in progress. The second use case is then the development of the regional twin. In fact, we have a regional twin because when we collect all that point clouds, we use the Cyclomedia Street Smart solution, and that gives you aerial images, that gives you the street view images, but also a 3D mesh, a 3D environment where you can explore, where you can do some measurements, where you can do some shadow analysis and so on. So we already have it for now, I think 4 years. And the idea is that of what we saw is that the municipalities use it quite a lot, but they don't use it enough because the possibility to put new 3D models of a future development and do that kind of analysis in is something they don't do enough. So we train them, we show them how to do it, and also made some governance material. For example, what you see here is that we put in a BIM model, a 3D model of a future development, and we do some site analysis. You can do the same, but then do also shadow analysis for all moments of the year. That also gives a good insight in what's the impact is of the building, and this application that make it also possible to put that model in the environment and have a quick tour. I will look if that's well doesn't okay that the idea was that it moved but it didn't yet. Oh, now it did. So you can make a tour and give a quick impression of how that new development fits in the environment, or maybe it doesn't fit in the environment. It's not only the showing the solution and training the solution, but we realized that in this project it's also important to have good guidelines and good governance of things. So we developed 3 things. We developed a step-by-step plan for the municipalities so that they know how they can work with that type of data and how they can put it in this street smart application. We also made some guidelines for the designers and architects in which form do that they have to give their information. But, and that's also very important, we made a draft agreement between the designer and the municipalities to create trust, to make it very transparent what's the data that they give, how it will be used, that the proper rights stay with designers and so on. Now we also are working on a 3D library of a simple object like trees to put in these 3D environment to also have a quick analysis, a quick evaluation of a project. And we do it in 3D environment, but also on the street view element. And it can be trees, but it can be also bins and all kind of objects in the public domain. It's also still a work in progress, but we developed for our municipalities a 3D library that's open, and they can see what's in it and use these objects to put in for their own needs. And then I go from use case 2 to use case 3. So for use case 2,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Just given the time, because I know that Christopher has a meeting
Yeah.
afterwards, would it be possible that you show this last part after the presentation?
Okay, I'm more or less done. It's 2 slides and then done.
Okay, then if it's quick,
So
then we
maybe
can.
it's yeah.
Okay. Thank you
So
so much. Sorry for interrupting.
no problem. So I told you about case two. Now use case three. I can't show a lot because we are this effectively elements that were working in 2026, but it gives a lot of more opportunities. That's instead of visualizing one site in an environment, we make an own environment where we can put all different BIM models or developments. So you see it in one environment, not only buildings, but also trees. And you do the scenario analysis and the comparisons of, for example, this design proposal or another design proposal. And it's also possible to visualize terrains and make some animations. And finally, and that promised my last slide, the idea is that we don't show the existing situation only and the design situation, but you also have the ambition to show the juridical situation so that if you plan or draw some things, you immediately see the impact in terms of what's possible about urban regulations, but also what's the impact and amount of surfaces that it's built and so on. And here I'll end and with this overview of all the projects that we use to build that platforms of visualization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And sorry for rushing you at the end.
No problem.
I'm sure that many people have good inspiration from this because I think it's very, very inspiring, I have to say. I would suggest if anyone has a question, please write it down either for yourself or in the chat, and we'll get back to that later after the second presentation. Thanks again, Bram. We'll get back to you later, and then I will hand over to Christopher now.
Hello, everybody. So, can somebody confirm that you see my screen?
Yes, looking good. Thank you.
Super. So today I will give you a brief overview about perhaps something in between the use case number 2 and use case number 3 that Pram was showing about the spatial planning information modeling and concentrating on the detailed zoning plans. And to really understand, is it like the real future where we are going to, or is it just this kind of like nice to have innovation process? Because, of course, you know that all these kind of problems we are tackling are not only technical problems, but they're also social problems. So that we also have to implement them. About me, I'm the head of the digital construction in the city of Tallinn, also doing my PhD in Tallinn University of Technology. I'm quite active also on the international level regarding the BIM and the building permits. So I'm at the moment the co-chair of EU BIM task group and have been a member since the beginning of European Network for Digital Building Permitting. And I would say that mostly I'm this kind of enthusiast and believer in the BIM-based processes. So, but why did I choose the topic of urban planning? So, of course, here we see this kind of like two different realms of the zoning plans on the paper, trying to somehow decode the situation, and something that some of us have already seen from the 90s playing SimCity. So actually, this is how you can do the city planning. The technology has been there for quite a long time. It's just the current practice is a little bit of outdated. But going to this kind of digitalizations, we always have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose? Why are we doing it? And actually, the purpose is really simple. We have to create the best possible urban environment, a good place to live in, a really desired destination to arrive to. And this is the aim that we always have to have at the back of our heads. But the situation is not that ideal as it was here. And as it is on all the renderings that you see for all the plans and all the new projects, sunny, nice, beautiful people, nice cars. It's not the reality, actually. The reality, at least in North Europe, in Estonia, most of the year it's very dark. It's rainy. It's not very nice outside. It's like +7. It's endless November. And then we have to ask, but now what is the purpose? And of course, it's still the same. We have to create the best possible urban environment. And we have to take the climatic situation into account of doing that. And by just drawing the lines on the paper, can we do it? Perhaps not. But then it would be the question that, but where is the problem that we can't do this kind of like really good environment? Would be the loss of information in the process, so that when we are going from the master level planning to the detailed zoning level planning to the design of the project, then construction to operation, all the time we are losing some of the information. And of course, we have some kind of like digital workflows, but yet they remain fragmented, and still we're not considering the previous points and upcoming points, so we do not have them synchronized yet. And there are 3 points where actually the private sector can't do anything about it. It's these kind of like legal points where you actually have to go to the municipality and you have to get like either your zoning plan approved, you have to get your building permit, you have to get your usage permit. And I have never met anybody who wakes up in the morning and feels like, what a wonderful day. What should I do? Yes, of course, I should get a building permit. What a nice idea. Well, this mostly is like, now I need the building permit. Now I need to get my plan approved. This is the reality, and we have to make it a little bit better, a little bit softer. But how can we actually reach this kind of situation? It's actually quite easy. Going from this kind of like document based processes where we have either things on paper or maybe we have them digital, but of course inside digital they are PDF, so that it's rather electronic than digital. So the way would be getting this kind of like public sector data core, that we have the open data. We have, for example, a geological database, the greenery database, the planning registry, building registry, address registry, etc. So that we connect all that information and then we query it through the digital twin interface. And by this interface, I would say it's either 2D map or 3D map or just some kind of brackets that you put information and then you query the information from the database in the different formats. And when you're doing the zoning plans, then you're not perhaps using anymore the PDFs exported from AutoCAD, but you're just using some kind of like CityGML schema for the comprehensive plans, IFC, which sounds perhaps a bit weird, but it actually works for the detailed zoning plans, and also for the design, utilizing the BIM models. And all that data that is in the models, you can just throw back into these databases through these kind of procedural environments. Of course, they have to be validated so that not everybody can push this kind of information into the database, because the data that is in the database, of course, it has to be trustworthy. But the starting point of these detailed zoning plans. So at the moment, in the city of Tallinn, we have narrowed the process down a little bit, but still it's like 4 to 5 years that you get your zoning plans approved. And here is just one example of one land plot, and there is just one building, but still it took like 3.5 years to get all of this process approved because it was in the center of the city and quite a lot of different conditions that had to be taken into the account. But sometimes these things are for several hectares of land, and there are like 17 to even 30 or 40 land plots for the bigger developments. They are at the moment on the PDF format mostly. There is like this kind of like drawing and explanatory letter. There is no machine readability. And then, of course, for the zoning plans, there is this public participation. This kind of like plans will be put on the public review, and then people come and they express their opinions based on that. And like this, I would not call it user friendly. I would say upfront, this is user hostile participation process, because it's really hard to understand in the sea of hatches and colors what is really meant here. And then we have to ask, is this really how we create this best urban environment? Because this was our purpose. We stated that, we said this is our agreement. We want to get the best possible urban environment. And then we are using drawings like this, where only 30%, 25% in the left corner is what is really being developed. And all the other drawing is legend how to read this. And I say this particular drawing because unfortunately in Estonia we do not have this kind of coloring layers standardized. So in one plan drawing it might mean one thing, in another it might mean another thing. Sounds a bit weird, but this is the reality. But then we're seeing a picture like this. It's in 3 dimensions. We have the digital twin around us. Then we have the area and this gray box, the volumes. We even have the architectural BIM model in there. But actually, this is the same thing. This is what is being planned here. And of course, this at the moment for the presentation is a static picture, but this is in the city model environment. And you can look it from whatever corner you want to look it. You can turn the layers on and off so that you are not overwhelmed by all of that information that is brought together there. And this is how you can actually understand what is going on around you if you're not either architect, landscape architect, or an engineer who can just blindly understand these kind of 2D drawings. So there comes this kind of term, spatial planning information model. It would be something like BIM, but a little bit different. And BIM has been around us for a very long time. But modeling planning elements in 3 dimensions and putting the information within it, it hasn't been around that long. Of course, there are the different standards like Inspire Directive, there is Land Administration Domain Model, there are different scientific approaches. But then again, what is really definition of this term? What is the scope of the modeling? What should be done in 2D? What should be done in 3D? What kind of level of geometry should we use? What is the level of information we have to put in? On what stages do we have to use that information? What are these kind of open standards that can accommodate this kind of solution? And of course, we have to bear in mind the usability of the solution, the compatibility of the most used software, so that if we introduce something extremely new and hard for the people who are doing it as their everyday work, then the adoption will be very challenging because people do not want to change. And of course, we want to speed up the process, but also we have to get better decisions because, again, best possible urban environment. And this is what we have to do. And another situation would be that it's not only one detailed zoning plan. Here we can see, for example, that there is one area, there is the second one, actually here is the third one, there is the fourth one. There are layers that have been turned on, the fifth and the sixth one, and actually there is seventh and eighth one, but for this pilot that we did not want to make it too big. And this is the entire harbor area of the city of Tallinn. And in this kind of existing situation, we would have to open 2 PDFs when we want to analyze, for example, this kind of like coherence area of the 2 different zoning plans. For example, are the bicycle lanes continuing normally? Is the boulevard going nicely? Are there any kind of like other disturbances? Then you have like one PDF on one screen, another PDF on another screen. They are of course very rich in vector data. Then you zoom in, it starts loading. Okay, you go take a coffee, maybe go out for a cigarette, come back, see computer needs a restart. Or you just have this kind of information in your city model. You play around with it, you zoom in, and you're looking at it in this kind of like 3D dimension, 3D environment that you are actually receiving world every day. And you can much easily see this kind of like usability problems or things like that. And if you already have, for example, we did a simple try so that, for example, in Estonia, usually these kind of plans are made using AutoCAD. Well, we see. So, okay, if we take the very similar product, for example, we utilize Civil 3D for this, then the other only thing was that there is IFC export capability. We exported these things in IFC. For this kind of analysis, we were using Autodesk Forma, but of course there are a lot of other software that are capable for this. And here is this kind of like sunlight analysis. And we can see that in the inner courtyards that are dark, they are not getting the 2.5 hour sunlight that is actually needed, and they want to develop their apartment complexes. And you do not have to wait until the building permit to get that information that you can't do this. You just play around with your urban planning solution and you make it possible so that these kind of situations would not happen in the later stage where the cost of redoing the situation is so much higher, so that you can use already this information. And the other use case, of course, would be the wind. We also did heat islands and the sound, etc., but that would go too long to talk about that. But for example, in the wind corridor, and if there is this kind of like huge wind corridor, and if, for example, there would be some kind of like children playground put anywhere here, then we have a lot of cold wind in the autumn and in the spring, but it's still sunny outside, so children go out play and they are just getting this wind, and this is not very good for the health. Whereas in Southern Europe, that would especially be a good solution because of the temperatures, the high temperatures, so the cooling wind would rather be a positive side. So we have this kind of like data-based analysis. And when we're doing these kind of things already, we can automatically check the solution and the detailed zoning plan against the master plan requirements. We did this kind of like proof of concept, and we are actually now preparing the minimum viable product of this situation so that we have the existing buildings. We just created some kind of 3D environment so that there are like point of interests, there are the narrowing zones, which are mostly utility networks, etc. And also, for example, the flooding information about the water level rise. I'm gonna speed up the video a little bit to come to the point, because we are also running out time quite soon. So that about the automated rule checking, we did the 7 different proof of concept level checks. So for example, to understand what kind of areas do we have there, we see that, okay, 40% of this plan is the transport area, 10% is buildable area, and about 50% there is a gap. There are no layers there. And also there is 1% of overlapping. It's in this case almost 700 square meters. This means like the transportation layer is on top of greenery layer or something like that. And this doesn't come out so well from the hatches of your drawings, but from the information model, it's very well understandable. Here we have the situation of the greenery requirements, and the master plan says 20% is needed. We query that information from the GIS layers. As you can see in the background here, we have the building heights. And the WMS says that 23 meters, and we can see that we have 20, 20, 17, and 3 meters in the detailed zoning plan, and therefore this kind of situation is okay with the city's master plan. Then we can also look already a little bit into the future and seeing what is the distance between the buildable areas or the buildable areas and existing buildings. Here, of course, there is an old building that should be demolished, but as we do not have the data at the moment in the model, it shows a warning. Or that there are no building plots remaining. Why this building distance is important, that if you build closer than 8 meters, then in the future you have to spend more money due to the fire safety requirements. If you have a space in your cadastral unit, then you can already avoid this kind of situation. And of course, there is a possibility that your buildable area is in the restriction zone. Here it's just slightly touching the railway protection zone, but we can see that, well, this is an issue and this has to be moved a little bit. But of course, with these kind of checks, there is the rules of the game and legislation about all these kind of things. then we have to understand like the data needs. What are the national minimum requirements and what are the additional needs of local governments? And if, for example, the city of Tallinn and the city of Tartu, which is another city in Estonia, would need something extra that is not in the national minimum requirements, how do we keep this uniformity? And also the question that this planning information model, is it municipal luxury or national obligation? And I'm just tying my presentation up, so it's the last slide. The challenge is why can't we do it very simply? So the technology is out there. We could just have this kind of like development 1 year and everybody starts using it. But planning is perceived as a form of art. There is a limited standardization, and when we want to now have this kind of standardization, then it's quite hard for the market to adopt, and it needs this kind of change because, as you can see, the last bullet, resistance to change, is of course the challenge everywhere. Who wants changes? Everybody. Who wants to change? Nobody. And with these automated checks as well, this is also a challenge because should we have very strict rules for the urban plannings, or would we want a lots of room for the interpretation? If we want this room up for interpretation, then of course we can't have very good automated checks because computers do not like this kind of like lot of room for interpretation. Computers likes measurability and definite amount of things. And these kind of analysis as well, should it who should bear the costs? Would it be like a municipal solution or should it be something that architects are doing? And I hope that I gave you this kind of brief overview and you learned something new and exciting. And if I'm not able to answer the questions you might have, then just connect with me in the LinkedIn and we can have the follow-up discussions. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you as well to you, Christopher. Do you still have a couple of minutes in case somebody has a question, or do you have to rush?
Yes, 5 minutes would I can take for the questions as well.
Okay, so if anyone has a question directly now to Christopher, but then also afterwards, we would still have some time for questions to Bram. So don't be shy if you want to unmute or just write a question to the chat. Otherwise, Christopher, what I would be interested in is, I know that Tallinn is really advanced in digitalization already in many departments of city administration, but planning as well. Do you have an overview? How do you streamline the digitalization process of the whole administration? Are you in contact with different departments all the time? How does it work institutionally?
Institutionally, we have very many departments in the city of Tallinn, which are basically different juridical bodies. But we have this strategic management office that I'm part of as well, and the IT service is in this kind of like horizontal strategical layer.
Mhm.
And of course, we are in a continuous discussion with other departments, the transportation, the social, the healthcare, etc., to get their needs and what do they really want. And then we try to understand what are their needs and how can we help with digitalization. But sometimes it's the case that it's not an amount of lack of digitalization, but it's a little bit mess in the business processes. And then we also help them with mapping their existing business process where it is not mapped yet, and then a little bit with understanding, or is the bottleneck in the lack of digitalization or is the bottleneck in not so fluent business process? And if it's the latter, then we try to push them towards 2B process implementation.
Okay. Do you maybe still have a question to Bram or the other way around? Haven't seen
I
each
was very
other's.
happy to see what Prom presented, and I saw there are like a lot of similarities that we have been tackling. And Prom, I will definitely add you in LinkedIn, and perhaps we can have some kind of follow-up meeting because I believe that the collaboration is the key. Because otherwise, we are reinventing the same wheel in the different silos, and it's better to come together with some kind of developments.
Totally agree. I had the same impression.
Okay. Then Christopher, in case you have to rush, in case anybody still has a question to you, we will forward it to you, or maybe they will contact you directly. So thanks a lot.
Welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question directly to Bram about the many activities of Interkommunale Leihre? Because I think what you have shown us, we see in Luxembourg so many starting points which are a bit similar, either the activities, but also the challenges, especially getting together different municipalities. What I would be interested in as well is how do you make sure that all the different municipalities, I mean, I know that you're an association of municipalities, but of course, I would assume that the municipalities have different systems and different stands of digitalization. How do you make sure everyone is involved and it is streamlined amongst the municipalities?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's not easy to answer. To be clear, I also define it to ourselves, to our own board, and just toward the municipalities, that this project, and then especially the Twin for Resilience projects, where we do some experiments with the digital twins, is that the main outcome is not a digital twin. It's to have the experience, is this discovery, is what's possible and what's not possible. And first of all, because our starting point, and I think that's different in Tallinn, like I explained, we don't have 3D building data. We have to make it by our own. So it's not a starting point to say, oh wow, we can do amazing stuff immediately. The municipalities don't have that amount of money to do it. So what we now are doing is baby steps. We want to learn a lot, but immediately we want to work with tools that are already in place in our company or in our intermunicipality and also in the municipalities. So luckily we had that Cyclomedia Street Smart tool, because that's a tool that we together with all the 30 municipalities implemented. So that's also something that's common. All the municipalities have a kind of a GIS system, and we have CAD systems and SketchUp systems. So we made the choice that we will work with these things and not with the Unreal and other gaming engines, because that's knowledge that we don't have. We don't have that expertise. We don't have the programs, the applications. So we made a very specific choice. We use the tools, or we stay as close as possible to the tools we already have, and we are focusing on processes or products that we do. So now we are focusing on urban designs. We want to visualize urban designs, and we do this for the municipalities. It's something that the municipalities don't do by themselves, more or less. They ask to us. So that's in that aspect, it's not difficult to say we do it for all the 13 municipalities, because in fact it's something that we do for them. So we try to we learn together with all the 30 municipalities. We share our knowledge to them. We stay to the tools and that they have and that we have, and we are focusing on one specific element. There's the visualization, is maybe it's the niche of spatial planning, that we find it so important, and that we think that we can make a big difference in the interaction between policymakers and administration and citizens. So we try to focus this that.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine that this is a real challenge, especially when municipalities are differently equipped and differently advanced in digitalization in general.
But there is none of the 30 municipalities have maybe Corteca as the biggest city, and even that they don't do it by themselves. They don't make a digital twin. Even in Ghent, a big city, has stopped their plans. So I think that the level of a municipality is too small to have all the financial means to really set it up and maintain it. So we try to do it a little bit for them, but not the big big solutions, but the additional parts that we think we can make the most added value out of it.
Okay. So cooperation is key in the end.
Cooperation is key. Yeah, that's our spirit of the intermunicipality. Yeah.
I mean, it was also the takeaway from Christopher, but in the end. We had one comment from one participant saying that it's very inspiring to see both examples, but it's also a bit sobering to see what has been done in Luxembourg so far. And I think it's a bit the similar issue that it's very split and there are many municipalities, and I think joining forces would really be a way forward here. I don't know if anyone has anything to add on that opinion or shares that opinion or maybe doesn't from the audience. Otherwise, the next CIPU activities during this year, we will try to join forces here a bit and see what can be done in digitalization in the next years in Luxembourg. So if anyone still has a question to Bram, either ask it here or we can, of course, also try to connect you, or you can contact him probably directly. Bram, then also many thanks to you for your input. It was really inspiring to see and really good practical examples. We also wrote a blog post on the CIPU website, which you can access. It's mostly about Schüttrange, but also in general about the Twin for Resilience project. So if you want to get to know more about that, feel free to read the blog. It's under cipu.lu. And then we say thank you from the CIPU office for the whole CIPU-Colloque this year. We will keep you posted on the next CIPU activities around the topic of data and digitalization in urban and regional development. And then we wish you a good rest of the week.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.